This is Earth Radio. And now here's human
music. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Speedy's Garage. We're hanging out in the shop a little bit today. We have been doing a lot of work with Go Man Go. If you've been following along, you know we've got our Red Eye engine installed, Red Eye / Demon, whatever you want to call it. But it's the upgraded motor after we blew up the first one. The original motor was in the Hellcat. We over-revved it, ended up being the problem. If you haven't seen that, we went back and looked at some data logs, and we had the car set up on 6,700 RPM, and part of my learning how to tune the thing, I didn't realize it would shift later than you actually program it to in like first, second, and third. So we hit 7,000 RPMs a few times, and those pistons didn't like that. So that's what happened to that motor. We got the Red Eye engine installed. We did the 500 braking miles. Just eased on it a little bit, didn't get on it very much, got the 500 miles on it. Then we have been tuning on it the second 500 miles. Mike from OST has been training me on how to tune these cars. I think I've got it pretty well figured out, but we're up to about 1,000 miles on it now, and I want to go ahead and do the first break-in oil change. So that's what we're going to do today. And when it comes to oil changes, I just want it to be easy. I don't want to have to go around and shop for boutique oil. You guys know I like the Pennzoil Platinum stuff, and a couple of years ago, Mopar actually switched over to Pennzoil from Mopar, and that's a contractual thing. They probably offered them a better deal in bulk or something like that. So Pennzoil became the official oil for SRT, and that was fine with me because I had been using Pennzoil anyway. Mobile One is fine, nothing wrong with it, but I ran a bunch of oil analysis years ago, and Pennzoil was just a little bit better. Not that you would ever notice, or not that you would ever see any additional engine wear or anything like that, but it was easy to get. And I would pick up these 5-quart jugs, and they were less than $23, so pretty good value for money. However, I went in to get the 0W40 that the Hellcat requires. A lot of people get hung up on the European version versus the MS blah blah blah. I don't ever worry about that. Honestly, as long as it's 0W40 and it's a good synthetic oil, I'm okay with it. So I go to buy the 0W40. This is 5W30, which is what I run in the 4Runner. They still had this. Couldn't find 0W40 anywhere. So I started calling around. I went to all the parts stores. Nobody had it. Ended up calling Pennzoil, and they decided to discontinue the 0W40 product in 5-quart jugs. Well, I couldn't find 0W40 in single quarts either. So I ran by the dealer and found some, and this is what I picked up. I got 7 quarts of 0W40, and this is the Ultra Platinum Full Synthetic. Unfortunately, each one of these was like $6.50. So I went from a less than $23 oil change. Well, I'd have to buy 2 of these, but you get the idea. Over time, you only use 7 quarts, so you'd have some left over. So about let's say $30. $30 oil change over time. To now we're at $6.50 times 7, so almost $50 just for the oil. I'm probably going to go back to Mobile One. They still had Mobile One on the shelf, 0W40. It is the European version. If that bothers you, you won't be able to use it. Obviously, if that's a concern, it's not to me. So I'm probably going to go back to that after this oil change. But this is what I got for today. We're going to get it put in the car.
And now here's human music.
So I want to show you guys this in case you weren't aware, but the Red Eye engines actually have the logo stamped into the oil pan. That was kind of cool. And I did remove all the splash shields because I am going to drain the oil cooler system just to be thorough. And a lot of people say it's not necessary, but since I can on the Hellcat, I'm going to go ahead and fill the oil filter up with a little bit of fresh oil before we install it. It just helps have oil pressure much more quickly, I think. And on some cars you can't do this because they mount the oil filter sideways or upside down or something, but on the Hellcat it's straight up and down just like that, so there's really no reason not to. So I'll fill it up a little bit, I'll let it soak because the media will actually draw the oil into it, and then I'll just top it up here in a couple of minutes. And while I'll let that oil drain, I'm probably going to answer the million-dollar question. People want to know, can I tell the difference between the original Hellcat motor and the new Red Eye motor? Now they're identical setup from my car. I have the 272 Hellraiser pulley on here. I use the same ID1000 injectors, so I think it's a pretty good comparison. The Red Eye / Demon engines have upgraded rods, pistons, and cranks. It's one of the reasons I went ahead and did that, because I thought, well, if I broke the original one, why not upgrade it as part of the replacement? And to answer the question, I think I can. My butt dyno is not calibrated very good, so I usually like to get some more data or some official data to base it on. So eventually I'll get this car on the dyno and we'll see what it looks like. But the cam in the Red Eye engines and the Demon engines is quite a bit different from what I understand than the Hellcat motor. And so it does feel like once you hit about 3,500 or 4,000 RPMs, it does start to pull quite a bit harder up top. Now, you also get a few more RPMs out of it. Now, you remember I mentioned we broke the original Hellcat motor because we gave it too many RPMs. So they were set up to shift from the factory about 6,000, maybe 6,200 in certain scenarios. Most people set them up to shift about 6,500. I had tried to go out to like 6,700, 6,750, and that's where I had made the mistake. It was going past that. Had I figured it out sooner, we probably would have been fine and never hurt the motor to begin with. But it seems like these engines don't like too many RPMs. The pistons start to actually fail. So it'll rip the wrist pin out of the piston. So that's what'll start happening. If you missed that video, be sure to go back and look at it because I detailed exactly what we found when we tore down the original engine. However, the Red Eye and the Demon motors actually from the factory rev out to about 6,400. So we've got this one set right at 6,500. I've data logged the PP out of it, for lack of a better term, to make sure I have it right. We got the air fuel set up like we want it. We got the timing right for the 93 octane. On this 2016 supercharger, and it is the AG, I believe is the part number. The original supercharger on this car had the bearing issue. We did get it replaced under warranty, obviously before we tuned it and put pulleys on it. It's the original 2016 AG supercharger. The 272 Hellraiser pulley on this car makes right about 16 and a half pounds of boost. I've had a couple of people with 2018 and newer Hellcats send me some data logs, and they're also running the Hellraiser 272 pulley, and they're making like 18 pounds of boost. So something has changed on the superchargers, and I've been reading a little bit about that. Someone said that maybe the intake runners had changed, maybe some internal bearings had changed, maybe even the lobes, the way the twin screws are set up might have changed as well. So if you've got a 2018 or newer Hellcat, keep that in mind when you're doing a pulley swap. I'm okay with 16 and a half pounds of boost on 93 octane. I don't know that I would be okay with 18 pounds of boost on 93 octane. So be sure you talk to your tuner and talk to the person you're buying the parts from to understand those differences. If you're a 2016 or older Hellcat, I'd do a 272 pulley all day long on 93 octane. If you can only get 91, then I would probably drop back to a 285. For those with 2018 and newer Hellcats, keep in mind, your 285 pulley is probably going to make about 17 pounds of boost now. So for a long time, people were saying a 285 was the limit. Well, it's not really the pulley size. It's the amount of horsepower the car makes on the fuel that you've put in it. So 93 octane can only support, from what I have seen, about 800 horsepower, maybe a little bit more than that, but not much more than that. And so forget about boost and forget about pulleys and all that. Think about how much horsepower the car is going to make. Once you get over 800, you're kind of getting into that red zone for 93 octane. I would say 91 can maybe support 740 or 750. So keep that in mind if you've got a newer car and you're doing a pulley swap. I never put all the oil in the engine when I'm first changing it and it's on the ramps. I went ahead and put 6.5 quarts in the engine, and I'm going to back it off the ramps, get it on a level surface and check it. I'm sure it'll need the extra half quart, but it's a whole lot easier to add a half quart than it is to drain a half quart out. So I'm going to back the car up, check the level, add if needed. All right, now we're going to check the level on our beautiful Billet Technology dipstick. Wipe it off first. Oh, I'm dripping. Yeah, see, It needs just a little bit more to come up to the top of those hash marks. Hopefully you can see those. So that's that extra half a quart, but I always like to double check before I put it in the engine. Try not to drip like I did, especially on the supercharger belt. Okay, so I took that extra half a quart, added it to the engine, rechecked the oil level, and it's perfect. Now, a lot of people, I see questions all the time, when should I check the oil level? Well, don't overthink it. It's just an oil change. I back it off the ramps and check it. That's it. I don't do anything weird like fire the car up, wait 10 minutes, stand on my head in the corner or anything like that. Pull the dipstick out right after I change the oil. As soon as it's off the ramps, check it, add oil if needed, and I've been good to go. I've had a bunch of people ask me about these race ramps, which I love, by the way. The ones I have are the standard 56 inch, and it ends here and goes to the end of the tape measure, obviously. Now, I did put the extensions on, and that makes, it adds 20 more inches so that it doesn't drag the spoiler or the air dam on the Hellcat, and that makes the overall length 76 inches. I've had several people ask me about that, so those are the ones I have. And when we're talking about pulleys and boost and horsepower and all that, you know, the 272 pulley had nothing to do with why my original Hellcat engine failed. What happened is we would see in the data log everything was perfect, and then I would see 14 degrees of knock retard all of a sudden. And that's not normal. Normally with knock retarded, you'll see it start to increase gradually. And so we knew something was off. I thought it was some anomaly. It actually wasn't. What had happened is the bottom of that piston had cracked, and the knock retard coming in right at the 4 to 5 shift was where that load on that piston had caused that crack to open up, and the rod was rattling in the piston until finally the piston failed and it just ripped the wrist pin right out of the piston. So that's what happened. There's been a few of those do that. So I recommend you do not rev your car, your Hellcat or your Demon or your Red Eye past 6,500 RPM. That's the max limit for me. I'm gonna keep this one right at 6,500. Has nothing to do with the pulley. I want to make that very, very clear. The 93 octane can support about 800 horsepower, and that's exactly what I'm finding. And if you're on 91, you'll obviously have to, you know, dial that back to 740 or 750 like I mentioned before. All right, so that's it for today. Just a little update, hanging out at the shop with you a little bit today. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedys_garage, as well as our website, www.speedysgarage.net. Stay tuned because I am going to start dialing in the race tune on this car, and I'll show you exactly what's different between a street tune and a race tune and how you get the most out of one at the track. So stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't already. Hopefully I'll see you out there.